Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you all for coming. It's absolutely fabulous that we're having this event, and huge thanks to the Oxford Feminist Union for organising it. It couldn't be more timely. One of the most weird things about this whole debate is I find myself agreeing with people like Donald Trump Jr. and Fox News, so Boris Johnson is kind of the least of my worries. When I reported his comments to my mum, she said, "Oh, brilliant, but does that mean we have to like him now?" So I'm an Oxford gal. I was born in the John Radcliffe. It doesn't come better than that. I went to school in Oxford, lived here since I was 9, went to university here and left when I was 21, I think. Lived in London and then Japan for the rest of my life, up to now. Until recently, I was the second fastest UK female marathon runner ever. But it was a very long journey. It took me 24 years to reach the start line of an Olympics, from when I had a dream to become a world-beating athlete. And when you watch sport on the TV, like the Olympics, it all looks very glamorous and easy. The athletes are fabulous and amazing. But actually, there's a huge amount of hard work that goes on behind the scenes. And when I think about the process of those 24 years, it feels like leaping through flaming hoops constantly and sort of making teams and qualifying literally by the skin of your teeth a lot of the time. And at any moment, you could fall off that journey. Sorry, I hate the word journey. I don't know why I used that. Development pathway is what I meant to say. So we've seen a lot in this debate that elite female athletes should be protected from male advantage, but at grassroots, no, that's okay. Of course, no elite athlete just pops up out of nowhere. All of us start as beginners. We spend time in childhood sport, grassroots, amateurs, and we gradually build up to elite. So my personal view is fairness and safety for female athletes is absolutely essential at all levels and all ages. This stuff about, oh, let's just treat the elites fairly is complete nonsense. There won't be... there won't be elite female athletes. They'll never get there because they'll be pushed off the development pathway, either by males in the female category, or they will self-exclude. I've seen in recent days data collected by Fiona at Fair Play for Women about how this is affecting recreational sport. And it's absolutely shocking, the level of self-exclusion of girls and young women from sport, because they turn up at an activity which they expect is going to be female only and there are men there. And, you know, if anyone says to you, oh, grassroots sport, yeah, let's all be nice and mix is fine, it's not true. So I'm going to just describe some of the particular moments in the development pathway that I went through, which I hope illustrate the risks of what is going on now with women's sport. So first of all, the foundation of my career as an adult, as an elite athlete in the marathon, was not in running. It was all in Oxford. I was a swimmer for several years, swimming for Harcourt Oxfordian Swimming Club, which later became City of Oxford Swimming Club. And I used facilities like the Ferry Pool, Temple Cowley Pool. I was also a member of the Oxford Etceteras Hockey Club, which later became Oxford Hawks. I played netball. I was a member of Radley Ladies Athletics Club, Headington Road Runners Club. So I used facilities in Oxford, you know, several facilities, and I was in these grassroots clubs. So if at any moment in all those years I had come up against a male in my own races, I think I would have quit the sport, to be honest, because this is absolutely unfair. And I would never have gone to the Olympics. I wouldn't be here speaking to you. I would be a nobody. So as a child, I was okay at sport, but I never went to, say, regional or national level competitions. The best I ever did was at county level in netball and hockey. So I was a kind of good athlete, but not exceptional. You know, a lot of the female athletes you see in athletics now, the top athletes, they've been English schools champions. I did none of that. So my background was in other sports, and it took me a long time. I was 35 when I went to the Olympics for the first time, so it took a long, long time. I was also, just coming back to the facilities, I became aware, thanks to the Oxford Feminist Union, of the Oxford City Council passing in December a motion saying, right, all council facilities must have gender-neutral changing rooms and toilets henceforth. And I just thought, if I was a 9-year-old at Ferry Pool having to share changing rooms with any male, I don't think I would have gone. I don't think my parents would have even let me go. So these kind of on-the-ground decisions are absolutely, they have a massive impact. I know I'm telling you things you already know, but this is from personal experience. Then I was a student, and I worked at the Foreign Office, and for the best part of 10 years I didn't really do anything much in running, although while I was learning Japanese I did train and compete quite seriously. And then when I was 29 I decided I wanted to really aim for the Olympics. I'd had this dream from age 11. So at that point I switched my work to part-time. I couldn't give up work because I wasn't good enough to earn a living or earn anything in running. So I switched my work to part-time, and I'd saved up enough money to do that by that stage. So I worked part-time and I trained part-time, and over a period of 3 to 4 years I was able to start to earn money from running, and then I was able to take unpaid leave from my job and become a full-time athlete. So those years, again, were very precarious. If I'd had an injury and I wasn't able to start to earn money from running, I would have just had to forget about my dream and continue as a civil servant. So that was a really precarious few years. So I'm going to talk now about a few specific instances in my career. In 1997, I competed in the European Cross-Country Championships trial race, which was held in Margate. So cross-country was my thing then. I'd never been on a GB team. I really wanted to get onto a GB team. I ran in the trial race, and literally on the line, I picked one of the other athletes into 3rd place, and she went into 4th. And because of that, I was picked for the team and she wasn't, and I beat her by a fraction of a second. Of course, she was very pissed off about this. But, this was fair competition. So I felt bad for her, but I earned my spot on that team. And as a result of that, I got my first GB vest. I finished 38th in that race, which was really nothing special. But it really opened my eyes to big competitions. The hotel I stayed in, I saw Steve Cram in the lobby. And I met role models, other team members, team managers who had been elite athletes. So this was a really big breakthrough moment for me. And I only got there by a fraction of a second. So again, if I had been up against trans women in that race, I probably wouldn't have been on that team. Then in 1998, I was the first athlete at the trial for the World Cross Country Championships who was not picked for the team. So the woman who finished ahead of me was picked, and I was the first not to be picked. So this was disappointing, but never mind, it was fair competition. And 2 weeks later, I won the English National Cross Country Championships. So in this race, it was a slightly depleted field because all the top women were in the World Cross team and focusing on that, so they weren't competing. So that kind of helped me, and I was able to win that race. But winning that race was a massive thing for me. I'm down in the history books as the winner of that race. So these kind of small things that happen, had it not been a slightly depleted field, I wouldn't have won it. I wouldn't be in the history books. So again, it's a very precarious kind of way that I ended up winning that race. In 2004, I did my debut marathon. So I'd returned from my posting in Japan, and I was aiming to, I thought, right, I'm 29, this Olympic thing, it's now or never, I'm getting a bit old. So I was aiming to qualify for the Athens Olympics. I entered the Berlin Marathon in September 2003. I got injured, couldn't compete. I entered the Amsterdam Marathon a month later, still couldn't compete. So I entered London in April 2004, so I was leaving it till the last minute. This was the trial race. I didn't get the qualifying time. I was 7th out of the Brits, and only the top 2, I think, were picked from that race. So I failed to qualify. I ended up with injuries after as well as before. But again, that was a fair competition. So the result of that for me was it really fired me up. I didn't leave the sport thinking this is unfair. I thought this is fair. I can definitely do better than this if I go away and work a bit harder. So that's what I did. And a year later, in the 2005 Olympic marathon, I qualified for that year's Summer Championships, which was a world championship, and I qualified for that race by 8 seconds. So had I been 9 seconds slower, I wouldn't have gone to that race, gone to that championships. And at that championships, which was in Helsinki, Paula Radcliffe won it, became the world champion, and I was on the team with her, and we won the team bronze medal. I possess only 2 medals, and that is one of them. So by 8 seconds, I got onto my first team with Paula Radcliffe, who at that time was the world record holder, earned my first medal. So again, it was literally getting there by the skin of my teeth. Also in 2005 spring, I did the World Cross Country Championships trial race for the UK team. And again, I was the first athlete not to be picked for that team. I was really focused on the marathon at this point, but I still loved cross country, and I was doing it as a sort of intermediate race towards the London Marathon. So I was the first athlete not to be picked, but because I was focusing on the marathon, I thought, well, this is okay. It's a bit of a disappointment, but never mind. But then at the last minute, one of the athletes on the team withdrew with injury, so I was a last-minute call-up. So I thought, oh, great, I'll go. You know, it's not part of my marathon preparation, but this is the World Championships. I can't say no. So I went, and despite being sort of the last member of the team, I ended up performing the best out of the GB women on the day. So again, that was a massive confidence booster, and I was only on the team sort of by the skin of my teeth again. And that again was a big kind of confidence builder. I was at this big championship. Learned from my teammates, etc. Then in 2006, I ran the London Marathon and went second UK all-time, and I held that record until February this year. And when... So the woman who went faster than me, Jess Piasecki, she's one of the stars of the future in the marathon, so keep an eye out for her. She'll be on the World Championships team this summer. But again, it's fair competition, so I accept that I was bumped down to third, even though it's difficult to be bumped down. I totally accept that she ran faster than me. Fine. If this had been a male athlete bumping me down to third, I would have been absolutely furious, because this really isn't fair competition. Then in 2007, I ran in the World Championships marathon. I had the flu for 2 weeks before it. Just managed to recover and compete. So again, that was another race where I could have not started. 2008, the same. Before the Beijing Olympics, I had terrible foot pain about 10 days before the race, and I thought I had a stress fracture, which would have meant no Olympics. But I managed to settle it down and got to the start line. So these are all examples of how you can just get pushed off this development pathway, literally at any moment. Then financially, when I was competing in the marathon, most of my income was from 2 days a year. So this is city marathons. You don't earn anything from championships generally, although in the World Championships, if you're top 8, you get prize money, but you get nothing from the Olympics, nothing from the Commonwealth Games, nothing from the European Championships. So I was mainly relying on racing marathons, city marathons, about twice a year. I did have sponsors, but my main income was from those races. So if you're injured and you can't compete, it's very precarious. And that happened in 2011. When I was injured. I was supposed to run the London Marathon, but I had to withdraw. So again, very precarious. I can't give a talk without talking about doping. So in the Beijing Olympics, this is an example of where you come up against unfair competition. But the gains which doping give you are absolutely minuscule compared to what male puberty gives you. So in the Beijing Olympics, I entered the Bird's Nest Stadium at the end of the race, shoulder to shoulder with one of the Russian athletes, and I just was not going to let her beat me, so I didn't, and I finished 6th and she finished 7th. She was subsequently banned but her result was not annulled. But, all that preparation I did for a fast finish, the photos of me at the finish, my lips are purple. That's how hard it was. And yet, then I discover a few years later that she was busted for doping. The World Championships in 2007, I was 9th. Rita Jeptu was ahead of me. She was subsequently banned. But again, that result stood. I'm still owed money from a big city marathon 12 years ago when I was bumped up the finishing order. Still no reallocated prize money there. But all these normally it's fair competition, but if there are dopers involved, then it's unfair competition. This is why people feel so strongly about it. A lot of people say, why don't athletes speak up more? Well, in the last 2 weeks, we have seen more athletes, especially in track and field, as well as cycling, speaking up, and this is really fantastic. And I really applaud, especially the younger, currently competing ones, because they have a lot to lose. One of them had her potential sponsors targeted, which is absolutely disgraceful. But I want to just mention briefly about exclusion of female athletes when males compete in the female category. So this morning on the Today programme, Veronica Ivy said, trans women haven't been winning the Olympics, they haven't been setting world records. Cis people, how long do cis people need until they calm down about this? And the point I want to make about this is that when one trans woman competes in a female competition, it affects potentially thousands of females. It doesn't affect one female. So to give you an example, at the Ivy League Championships in February, Leah Thomas competed in 3 events and won them all. So the females who were excluded from things of value because of unfair competition are as follows. All the women who finished second were denied a place on the top of the podium and being recorded in history as the champions. All the women who finished third were denied silver medals. All the women who finished fourth were denied a moment on the podium altogether. All the women who finished 9th in the heats were excluded from the A final. All the women who finished 17th were excluded from the B final. I think at least one athlete, possibly more, was excluded from the Penn team. Every female athlete finished in a worse finishing position, one worse finishing position because of Leah Thomas's inclusion. Then we have records. Leah Thomas broke 6 records at the Ivy League Championships alone, so all those females wiped from the record books. And it's possible that some of those records are fossilised, as Matt, we heard in the introduction. So female world records in athletics, which are widely regarded as being doping assisted, they are beyond the reach of any females who are not doping. Then you have the all-time list. So Leah Thomas will have bumped down potentially thousands of women from the Penn University all-time list, the Ivy League all-time list, the NCAA all-time list, the USA all-time list, the state all-time list, ditto for all the 2022 lists. So in the list of all the athletes in 2022, top in Penn University, the Ivy League, the USA, all of them will have been bumped down, those who have swum slower than Thomas. And then you have self-exclusion. So the last time I watched the video of one of those races, it had been viewed 5.1 million times on Twitter. I think we can assume that quite a lot of those viewers were swimmers or family members of swimmers. How many of them will have looked at this and thought, this is unfair, I'm going to quit? Then you have family members and supporters, and I should have said earlier that no athlete reaches the Olympics without a massive support team, family members, friends, supporters, employers, sponsors, coaches, physios, nutritionists. It really is a team effort. And all of those teams, all of those supporters of the female athletes who, for example, were excluded from the title, they also are excluded from the opportunity to celebrate something special. I haven't even got on to relays, so Leah Thomas swam in the relays at the Ivy League Championships as well. Then we're talking about places on relay teams, the heats, medals again. So this gives you an idea of how much exclusion happens when one trans woman competes in the female category in those unfair competitions. So if ever you hear people saying, oh, it's only a few, don't get so upset, deploy some of those stats with them. And just very finally, just a couple of very quick things I want to mention. These are things about which there seems to be an awful lot of misunderstanding out there. So I just want to clarify, in case any of you don't understand this, or you've seen reporting which is incorrect. So one is about testosterone. The WADA code, WADA is the World Anti-Doping Agency, and their list, their sort of rule book of what is allowed and not allowed is called the WADA code. And all the signatories to WADA are signed up to this. The NCAA are not signed up to it, as I understand it, but most countries are signed up to this. So this is the set of rules for anti-doping. Testosterone is banned in the WADA code in and out of competition. So testosterone is not allowed for anybody, male or female, at any time. So you see speculation on testosterone, on Twitter, about, trans men can compete in the men's category, or if they keep their if trans men keep their testosterone to under 5, surely that's okay. It isn't. Testosterone is banned in any amount in all circumstances. And then the final thing I just want to clarify is around athletes with differences of sexual development, DSDs. So this is a different issue to trans athletes. These athletes are not trans. They have a difference of sexual development. And there's been quite a major impact in athletics. And there's a lot of misreporting about this issue. So I just want to read a World Athletics press release to you, which gives the facts. And this will be in an email, follow-up email, which the OFU are going to send out. Which athletes fall under the DSD regulations? This is a World Athletics press release from May 2019. The DSD regulations only apply to individuals who are legally female or intersex, so registered female at birth, and who have one of a certain number of specified DSDs, which mean that they have male chromosomes XY, not female chromosomes XX, testes, not ovaries, circulating testosterone in the male range, brackets 7.7 to 29.4 nanomoles, not the much lower female range, 0.06 to 1.68 nanomoles, and the ability to make use of that testosterone circulating within their bodies, i.e. they are androgen sensitive. So I hope that clears up some of the sort of fog around this issue, and I'm sure it's going to feature prominently in this summer's World Championships in Oregon. World Athletics have restricted the 400 metres up to 1 mile, but the events shorter and longer are currently unrestricted. I'm going to stop there. I have one very short final announcement, which is I've given you a snapshot of my career. If you want to learn more, I've got a book coming out in June. I did ask permission from the OFU for a bit of gratuitous self-promotion. They kindly agreed. I've just announced it this morning on my Twitter, so please buy a copy. I've heard it's very good. Thank you.